Hey, this is Cavallo from datingfire.com and datingadviceguru.com. Nothing is more frustrating and more common, it seems, than the experience of texting a guy and then he stops replying to you. You get ghosted. It sounds like some kind of supernatural disease, right? Ghosting, but it's one of the most common dating experiences these days. Well, that's what we're talking about today. When you're texting a guy and he stops replying, what to do. And before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this wonderful little video podcast, make sure you do the big three. Make sure you, number one, like and subscribe to the videos. Why wouldn't you? Number two, turn on the reminders, the notification, that little bell indicator next to the button. And number three, if you have any questions or comments, or if you just want to suggest a video, leave that in the comments below. You know, in fact, it's actually become pretty common for guys to stop texting women without much of a warning or an explanation for why. Now, to be fair, women do the same thing to guys, but since this is a report for women, well, we're going to talk about the reasons guys do it and how you can hopefully fix it. Why do guys text me and then disappear, right? You wonder about that. Was it something you said that made him stop responding? I thought we were doing so good. What the heck happened? You may have asked those questions to yourself, and I'm here to help you out and show you the reasons why guys stop replying to them. First off, you have to realize that men don't think about texting the same way that women do. This is really important because most women assume that men take texting really seriously. The reality is that men don't really like to text all that much. Oh, sure, he'll say that he likes to text his friends and his family, but the truth is that most guys only text when they absolutely have to, or just to touch base and pass along some planning or logistical information. Texting is simply a little playground, a little place to play around and flirt with a woman that a guy has just met. He's going to text you to gauge whether or not you're actually interested in him. But the game can get tiring really quickly for guys, which is why we tend to ignore our phones just to get a little bit of a break. Now, of course, there's a ton of reasons why he would stop texting you. Reason number one, he's involved with somebody else. You know, the truth is this is definitely a possible reality. A lot of people go out and date a lot of other people, which means if you weren't able to stay in his favorite zone, then he may have moved on. Now, of course, there's also the possibility that he was never free in the first place, meaning that, yes, he was either married or he was in another relationship already, or somehow otherwise detached. But don't get judgy. Studies say that at least 1/3, possibly more, of all women who are online dating are actually just looking for some attention that they're not getting in their current relationship. That's right, they're just in need of validation. Some women may be shopping to see if they really want to end their current relationship for something new or something better. So it's not something that just guys do. Sometimes the person we meet isn't the one for us. No matter how much we might like them, well, we realize on some level they really weren't a good fit. I've had plenty of first dates where I was so sure it would have been great connection, but the women inevitably ghosted me and flaked on me. Yes, it happens on both sides of the fence. Reason number two, he lost interest. Yes, this is certainly a possibility. It happens quite frequently, and depending on how you met this guy, that could happen a lot. Let's face it, in the absence of reminders about how much chemistry we felt between two people, right? We're just going to assume that there was no chemistry. This is how guys think. You see, men are very visual, which means that if he doesn't have something to remind him about you, it can be very difficult for him to remember a good reason to keep chasing you. And this could have nothing to do with how attractive you are. The simple fact of the matter is that if he doesn't have a potent reminder of his experience with you, there's a good chance that he will just lose his interest. This is why women used to leave a little bit of their perfume on the same napkin that they would write their phone number on. You wonder why? That's why. Because unless you can stay in his awareness, he may forget you, and this is actually pretty easy to fix. You just have to know some strategies for how to text him to remind him, and it also helps to know what to do on those all-important first dates. That's what I teach, and we're going to come back to that one in a bit. Reason number three, it's his problem. The fact is that whatever the problem is that makes him stop texting and connecting with you, it's his problem, not yours. There are 1,000,001 different reasons why a guy might not be able to stay in contact and keep texting you. I'll give you a few of them. For example, he's focusing on his job. He's got family issues that are pulling on him. He had an emergency. He lost his phone or it broke. He got back together with his ex. He lost his job. He started a new job or a new business. He had a change of heart about dating. The real lesson here is not to make up stories in your head about why he fell out of contact. You can't possibly know the real reason. And the real reason might have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with you. And even more important, no matter how many times the guy stops texting you, the reasons that he stopped sending you texts don't have to be connected to any of the other situations. Meaning, Each person, each guy you date, they each have their own reason for disconnecting, which can be totally different, and none of them have to be connected in any way. The point is, you just don't know until you know the exact reason, and you may never find out the exact reason, so don't drive yourself crazy with that, okay? So just stop torturing yourself, wondering if there's some hidden flaw about you. Am I too fat? Did I not look good? Was my hair blah, 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 blah? You're fine. Just resume the search, and don't let his behavior change your self-image. The real point here is to get him back to text you back, right? So let's take a look at that. How to get him to text you back. That's the question you probably want answered the most. Now here's a few tips for you. Tip number 1 is what I call the WTF. One of the most powerful tricks for getting a guy's attention is to basically confuse him a little bit. Everybody is vulnerable to this. We pay attention to something that just tickles the back of our mind and makes us have to figure it out. We see something a little weird and we're like, what's going on over there? And we have to figure out what's going on with that. We humans don't like it when there's something on our mind that we can't figure out. It bugs us and it preoccupies our attention. So the one thing you can do to send him, basically, just send him a quick text that will make him scratch his head and make him need to find out more. It'll tickle his curiosity. Just send him a little text out of the blue with some weird quote or some weird statement, or accidentally send him a text that you meant to send to somebody else. Now, before you say anything about, oh, Carlos, that seems like such a game, you know what? All of life is a game, and quite honestly, if you don't do something, this guy is never going to talk to you again, so it's worth a last Hail Mary pass, if you will, to get him to respond. I'm sure you've heard enough quotes about how what other people think about you doesn't matter, but let me ask you something. Do you really believe that? Are you actually maybe a slave to other people's perceptions of you? Are you afraid to send a text that might be a little weird or maybe step out of the norm? Take a chance. Do something different. In this situation, you've got nothing left to lose. Now here's a little preventative medicine with tip number 2, and that is to keep your texting short and sweet. When you first start communicating with a guy, the best thing you can do is to keep your texts very, very short. I mean, really short. Frequently, I talk with and coach women about this. I tell them that they're putting way too much into their text. They're investing their whole life in a text message, for God's sakes. You can't text a guy like you would text your girlfriend. You have to show a lot more restraint and play a lot more hard to get. Here's a general rule about texting him so that you don't burn him out. Only text him one sentence at a time. You've got to avoid these, I call them essay texts. When your text has to be continued in another text bubble, you've gone on way too long. If you ask him more than one question in the same text, that's too long. If your text isn't shortened down to just a few words, you might not have thought through the message clearly, and he's going to notice that. The best communications and the best communicators say things in the fewest words possible. Tip number 3, let him start the fire. Do you feel like you're always texting him first? Usually that's a symptom of the problem, and it's something a lot of women feel. You may have been doing this all along, and he got used to you doing it. You're the one who always starts things up. Another good rule of thumb is that you should only text him after he's texted you. If you text him too much, it won't seem very special anymore, and he won't feel like replying as much either. The goal here is to make him think about you more than you think about him. I know it's kind of a duh, but you got to remember that. Ask yourself if what you're about to do is getting you closer to that goal or further away from it. Are you making him think more about you, or are you just thinking more about him? That should help you figure out what to do and when to do it. Tip number 4, don't tease him like that. A lot of women will throw out a suggestive, naughty text to a guy just to get a response. And yeah, you'll probably get a response. That goal will be achieved. But here's what happens. He's going to see your flirty or dirty text, and he'll text you back, right? Then he's going to expect your text exchange to get even more dirty and more intimate. And it's going to eventually escalate. And that's always going to make him think of you as being his friend with benefits, not a serious romance. If he only replies to you because he thinks he's going to get some, you're just setting yourself up for that kind of relationship. And you will know exactly what he's thinking about you. Remember, you train him to treat you the way he treats you. You train him through how you text him. So start it off right. Tip number 5, stop watering dead plants. I saw a great quote, and I actually posted it to my Facebook group recently, and it said, stop texting first and see how many dead plants you've been watering. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. There are a lot of people who are texting people who really aren't all that interested in them. Some of them may actually be too polite to ghost you, okay? So if you stop texting them and they text you back anyway, You probably got somebody that's interested. Keep in mind, if somebody is interested in you, they will put in the effort to stay connected. Guaranteed. That's a rule you can count on. If you're chasing them, that's coming from insecurity, so stop doing it. Tip number 6, maybe don't be so eager. Yeah, it's tiring for a guy to go back and forth texting you for more than a couple exchanges, which leads me to another bit of advice. Be very careful not to text him more than 2 times in a row. Now, what I mean by this is if he texts you and you reply more than 2 times in a row, it's going to feel like a conversation. And trust me when I tell you that guys find text conversations to be very tiring, fatiguing. This is, well, it's why so many guys like to send suggestive and explicit texts. He just wants to cut to the chase after a while. Ultimately, he's testing his boundaries. Sure, you've probably had guys send you unauthorized pictures of their male anatomy. This is because he's lost his perspective on behaving like a gentleman, sure. But there's also some clueless part of him that really does just want to flirt. Seriously, if he does send you a picture of his junk, delete the picture and delete him. And tip number 7, don't rely on texting so much. Now I know right off the bat you're going to go, oh, I'm done with this video. Look, I'm sure that women hear that advice and they're wondering, what the heck am I talking about? It's probably the most important thing you can hear right now, even in this video. It's my experience that women rely far too much on texting to communicate with men. They've mostly given up on phone calling or talking in person in any way. Don't get me wrong, texting is great for communication, but using text for a guy is not a good way to start a relationship. Deep down in your heart, you probably know this to be true, but you're clinging to texting. Guys simply aren't as much into texting, and if you insist on texting him a lot, you'll probably lose him eventually. Okay, he's into texting for a different reason. He sees it as another avenue to satisfy some, well, more primal desires. Most of my coaching clients come to me with texting problems, but texting is not the actual problem. The problem is they rely on texting way too much. Think of all the things you miss out on when you communicate in a text. You don't hear his tone of voice. You don't see his eye contact. You don't see the body language. You don't even feel that subtle that vibe between you. If you're only texting him, you're sending a 10% communication, meaning you're just sending a little itty bitty flavor of what it is you're really trying to communicate. It's missing out on the tone, the body language, there's no vibe. And if you think about it, there's no way you're going to get a guy to marry you on a Zoom call, okay? You're not. You won't buy your first house through Skype. You won't have your first kids while you're on speakerphone together. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but you get my point. You're not going to fall in love using only texting. So you've got to have more effective communication. Even if you are texting, you got to know how to do it right. We got to get that intimate face-to-face communication going. Stay with me because this is going to be really a big important tip. It's probably the most important thing in the video. Do you remember that kid in the playground who always wanted you to be their friend so badly? They would do anything for you and you found yourself basically disrespecting them and really resenting them and you hated yourself for that, but they brought it out in you? Instead, don't be that woman, right? That's what happens when you're insecure and needy with a guy. Instead, be the woman who respects herself too much to waste her time on a disinterested man. Doesn't that sound better? See, the secret to texting him and not having him fade away, what is that? The trick about dating is choosing the right person and having the choice to begin with. You, as the woman in the dating, you don't ever want to get into this game where you choose the guy who is the least interested in you. He was the most disinterested. And you should never choose somebody based on a feeling of scarcity, right? That's what happens. You start to feel like, oh my God, I don't have a lot of choice here. There's not a lot of good guys out there. It's hard to get them interested in me. What am I going to do? So that's what you do. You end up compromising your own boundaries and your own self-esteem in the process. If you've ever felt like you need to hold on to this guy, no matter how crappy a prospect he might be, just because, well, you can't manage to find a better guy, you start to feel that scarcity, don't you? You don't feel prized, but you can't seem to find that trick to getting him interested in you. My mentor once said to me, the best way to live your life is to say, I don't have to prove anything to anybody, not even myself. Now, I've tried to live my life that way as best I possibly can. And that's something I encourage you to bring to your dating. Stop trying to impress people. Stop trying to prove that you're the right person for somebody. Stop bending over backwards to win favor and approval. Stop kissing their butts. Instead, you should be looking for the man who recognizes your value. He's the one who will gladly chase you. He's the one who will also work. Yes, he'll do the working here to connect with you. So how do you find that guy, right? Well, it starts with knowing how to read men. This is an essential skill that most women simply don't have. And because of that, it was one of the first things I put together in a formal way to show women how to read what it is we're thinking. What is it that he means when he says certain words, stuff like that. If you'd like to learn how to read men's signals, I can actually tell you about how to do that. Go on over to datingfire.com/free book. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you my free ebook, but right after you sign up, you'll also get my free newsletter, by the way. Just put in your email. Right after you do that, I'm going to send you some information on how to read men's signals. Okay, so you're getting 3 great things here. Number 1, you're going to get my free ebook on the 7 mistakes that make men pull away. You'll get that. You'll learn the real reasons that men do this thing, this ghosting thing. Why do we run from relationships? You'll know how to find out if he's still interested in you. Then you're also going to get my VIP newsletter, and then I'm also going to show you how to read men's signals. It's on the page right after you put in your email to get all the other great free stuff. So go on over and do it. Go over to datingfire.com/free book. That's datingfire.com/free book. And before you roll away from this video, make sure you do the big 3. Number 1, make sure you subscribe and like to the video, of course. And number 2, turn on reminders, the notifications, that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. And number 3, also make sure you leave me a question or a comment if you have one in the comment section below the video. Hey, this is Cavallo from datingfire.com/free book. Go get it. As always, live and love with passion.